Back, everyone, to part 3 of the best of times and the worst of times. And guess what? As I said earlier, it all depends on your perception. Your perception creates your vibration, and that creates magnetism. And understand this, everything that you have in life, your health, your sickness, your wealth or your poverty, your beautiful relationships or not so beautiful, have all been created by your perception. So sometimes we need to change our perception. So why don't we focus on Brent here for a while? Brent has a show, and it's called Be Brave, and it's on the BHN True Vision Network. And just so you know, he's one of the first shows. And I also have Jim Gale from Food Forest Abundance, and he has a weekly show as well. We will be building up to about 60 to 120 shows. I don't know what it's going to look like. And it's all going to be on Braveheart Nation True Vision Network. And that's going to be, the app will be coming out then, but we're pretending we have it already just to work out the kinks. And understand, has anybody seen the Be Brave show with Brent yet on my platform?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Awesome.
Okay, well, then maybe we will keep it. Okay, take it away, Brent.
All right. No, that's, by the way, good to be with you in person again, too, right?
Yeah. And we are so blessed to have Brent, okay,
Well,
and Jake, and their show is amazing. If you haven't seen it, just know that you can go to Doc of Detox Library and really catch up on it. I mean, do you want real science? Well, it's the real science of the whole interconnection from bees to humans to nature. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'll just assume nobody has seen any of those shows so that we can go through it, because a lot happened here, right? And so, first of all, what I'll say is I'm incredibly glad to be with this energy and group and out there as well. We've just come back out of the beehives because in Canada here, it's a very special time because it's unpacking the hive. So the bees have all been in hibernation for the winter. And we've been just coming off a 3-year study where we've been dealing with hives that don't have the pure wave cell. And I'll talk more about what the pure wave cell is, and hives that don't, and the difference of how many hives were dying versus what they are doing. And it's nothing short of phenomenal. And it's in some of our shows with Dr. Magda Havas, who's doing the study. And what it's really showing is what we've always known would happen for us and the bees and animals is absolutely happening, which is building up the cells on an immune level. That's really what we're doing, is we're building cells up. It's like we're communicating with the cells through this frequency or algorithm that we're dealing with, which is called the pure wave cell. So in one of the first shows that we did that Daryl was referring to is we have to go into the past. So I'm going to quickly go into our history in the past as to where we were picking this up from. And my associate and Terry were having this conversation on the way down today, is that science is one thing, but one of the greatest things that we all have is observation in nature. And my belief is that no matter what we're subject to hearing, and we're all subject to hearing everything, down the gambit, is that nature always wins. Nature is the winner always. And all of its secrets are there to observe, but you have to go and observe them. So on that note is, for years and years, my background was more out of FinTech, which was dealing with algorithms for mathematical equations to, i.e. debit and credit machines and things like that. But what happened is, triggering along the way of doing that, I found out that you could change different algorithms by basically those mathematical formulas. Well, what are those? Those are basically geometric shapes that we all see. You see them everywhere. You're seeing them from the Star of David or star tetrahedron. You're seeing them in corporate logos. You're seeing them in beehives. But the common denominator is always the six-sided or the six-pointed, right? So, ironically, when you look at law enforcement, people that never really asked, they go, yeah, that's right. They have a star on their shoulder, right? Well, there's no coincidence to that, but it's mostly a 5-pointed star, which means the 5 senses. So it literally is dealing with the laws, man-made laws, right? So that's what they're dealing. They're enforcing man-made laws. When you go to the 6 points, that's the six, that's outside of man-made laws. So now you're getting into nature, right? So I just wanted to give you those principles, because where that led into was, if you can get those shapes exactly right, and I'll show you what I mean. And this took just years to figure out. Well, here, I'm going to show it there. And then can everybody see that?
Yes.
A little bit? Okay. So you can see that that's 6-pointed here around. That shape has to be exactly, just like a recipe, it has to be exactly like that. And then what I've introduced is powerful neodymium magnets to hold that shape in place. So in other words, for me to hold it, I have to have like a glue. So the glue is the magnets. So when we have a pure wave cell, which I'll show you in a second what that looks like, once you get this shape right and the magnets and the power of the magnets right, what they'll do is they'll hold this frequency in place. And this is the frequency that when you were born, or insects or animals, the first thing you did as a one-celled, and we have this like in the videos on microscope, so you can see this. The first thing you did was form that. First thing your cells did was form that, and then expand it out. So the first 6 steps of your life were this. That's when I knew that the cells respond to that. That's where we come from. That's the language for them. That's how they respond. So once then we get the magnetism or the strength or the algorithm right, then we can start to feed the cells on a frequency basis. I mean, you do that through food, you do that, which is just frequency. But what this does is it's just like pure food to it. So what we elected to do is we played around a lot through years with humans on testing things out, inflammation, which it's really, really good for. But we elected to say, well, wait a minute. One of the main sources that's going on, this was like in 2015, what was going on with the bees, there was a lot of loss of the bee colonies. And so when I thought to myself, why wouldn't it be better? Because they have no placebo too. They're not complicated like us humans. So I thought, well, let's go in and let's see how it affects just direct. Let's just go take hives that don't have it and hives that do. And so what we did is we developed this into what is known as a cell. Looks like this. So inside here is that shape with neodymium magnets placed in that place. It's basically very powerful. They're 4,000 per cell that's in here. So there's like 48,000 Gauss here that it's doing. So I want to show the audience what it actually looks like inside. So I'm going to show you here. So there's the frequency that comes out of it when it starts to generate there. Now, can you see that too? And I can show you after. Okay. So this is a magnetic film that's showing, but it doesn't look like that inside. It looks like what I just showed you, but that's what comes out of it. Right. And then, of course, we have electronic tests to show what actually the frequency is and so forth. So this is what we put in hives. And when we did it, we started out with the first beekeeper that we started with was a holistic beekeepers where Christine had 12 hives. And they were literally, let's say from where the curtains are over there. And I know you can't see that on here, but maybe about 20 yards apart. So we had 6 hives that were 20 yards apart of another 6 hives. We put pure wave cells in the 6 hives. And the other ones, we left them just to do naturally what they were doing. So all these bees had the same food source, same everything. Everything was the same. They did treat, and then they didn't treat them with their varroa mites and stuff like that. At the end of the season, again, we filmed all this. The 6 hives that had the cell in it produced twice the honey. They had to split the hives. It was phenomenally different. It was, but that was only one off. So then we realized that we had to go farther because beekeepers will ultimately only respect commercial beekeepers because they've been doing it 3rd generation and so forth like that. So I had a hard time convincing commercial beekeepers to do this. This is their livelihood. And it was ironically, Thomas Ray, one of the first commercial beekeepers, he said the only reason he would be willing to do it is that there's no work involved, right? Like he could just put the cell in, right? So we did it, and that was 3 years ago, and it's been phenomenal ever since. The differences, and we have this all on films and on the shows, and we'll show you that. And if you go to DACA Detox and these films, we have these beekeepers telling you so that you can get all that detail. So, so this year, we've gone out, and this has been a particularly bad year here in Northern Ontario, just because of the weather in the winter, and beekeepers were losing hives. So we always have different yards that have the cell and don't have it. And it was a phenomenal difference. And we filmed it all, and we'll be bringing that to you. The hives were being split with the ones that didn't. So it's becoming a foregone conclusion that there's no question it's a different. And all we're doing is we're building up their immune system. Now, they're still up against food source, and they're up against things like 5G and frequencies like that. But what we did, this is what's really exciting. We realized that we're helping all kinds of beekeepers, but that's not where we source the honey from. Because in some areas, the honey's in a very highly pesticide area, where grapes or things like that. And it's just, the bees are really up against it. They're from a food source. So we've gone to specialized areas, in this case, Grey Highlands, and it has no infrastructure around, lots of forests, lots of wildflowers. And that's where we've sourced our honey from there. And then we treat it with another development that we have that's called the Chrysalis E, and you'll see this on the videos. It's like the mother lode of what I just showed you there. It's a large instrument with 310 magnets that are at high speeds, and we can control what frequency, and then we treat the honey with that as well. So not only are you getting pure raw honey, and it's raw honey, but it's also honey that comes from those hives, so highly healthy hives, and then we treat it. So we consider it, and taste-wise, people come back to us, and it has some of the greatest taste, and we get reports back from that all the time. So unlike other honeys that can be healthy for you, like Manuka stuff, there's not a great taste for it, but this is like incredible, right? So that's come from the beekeepers, but we also source it at a higher trade for them. We pay them more for that honey, because if we're going to help the bees and save the bees, we've got to save the beekeepers. They control all the bees. So they need to be financially helped and supported and doing it. And when you do that with them, they go to town, because it's very expensive for them to replace hives and doing things. So that's what we do through what your public support. And we have a lot of public support out through the States. And they come in, and we supply those cells to the beekeepers at no charge for anything that they do. So bringing them queens, and we have this all on film. So I'm just bringing this to explain. But another thing has happened by so many people purchasing the cell themselves for their own use. We get all kinds of feedback with things such as plants. So I just had one last week, and I'll show everybody here after onto it. One of our customers sent saying that without any water, they had this wilting plant that they showed me, and then they used the cell for 7 hours, and it was just like it was watered. It just jumped. So I get a lot of this back in, and I'll start posting it from them. Also from pets, dog and cat owners, we get all kinds of feedback when they're putting it in their bed or in their food, like underneath their food that they're eating, their plate or their bowl. What's happening with the pets is the same for us. And of course, it's really great. This kind of stuff's great for inflammation, things. When you put it under your pillow, we get a lot of like tinnitus, people that suffer from that. Just all kinds of ailment. But really all we're doing is affecting cells. That's why it was so important for me to explain, why does this communicate with cells? Why? It's because where we come from, the geometry is absolutely critical. The shape, and later on, you're going to see it everywhere in nature. We'll show it to you on video everywhere. It's just, you're not seeing it. Has anybody ever heard the name or the term reticular activator?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that means all of a sudden you decide you want to buy a Volkswagen vehicle, and then you see it everywhere. It's like, there's one. So the moment you guys decide something, or all of us, is we see it everywhere. Well, that's going to happen to you now. You start going and looking for 6-pointed stars, and you're going to see it. You're going to see it in our law enforcement. You're going to see it in our government. You're going to see it in structures of. You're going to see it everywhere, right? But this is why it's not a coincidence. It's why it's on the Jewish flag as well. It's in all major religions, by the way. It's in Muslim, Christian, Jewish. In their churches, it's also in South America, everywhere. There's nowhere you can go. Mesopotamia came through there, Egypt, and then into the Roman Catholic Church. It's all in the Masonic lodges. I can show you pictures where it's huge. Their chairs are underneath it. So It's profound. I tell you, you'll go and it's profound. But what's it mean for you? That's what it means for you. Once you start to capture it and bring it into your life in a frequency base, the cells respond to that, depending on what we're doing, right? So that's basically and then we're carrying on big time this year with the bees and then animals. We want to get into more animal testimonials because we've really kind of ignored that, and because we've been focusing with the bees, right? So I'll just kind of close in with this, saying that again, all of us are subject to a bombardment these days of, it doesn't matter whether it's political, health, or scientific, or if it's family oriented. We're bombarded with all kinds of negative information that comes into us. And all I can say to you is it really doesn't matter, because nature always wins. We're always going to win on this. It gets pushed from one side to the other. But once you get rid of that and decide how you'll go in, and each one of you can decide which way you want to look at that, it's incredible. Your life is transformed. You're now going into it. You're not part of seeing what's happened. You're part of making what's happened. So it's been really exciting for us, and we're excited to be here to pass this on to you. So we can maybe open that up for questions, or which tends to get better out of it, right? Yeah, back there.
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Good. I bought one of your units today. So
One of the cells, you mean? Yeah, okay.
I was intrigued by the fact that there was ability to heal the food that we're going to eat before we eat it. So can you talk a little bit more?
Oh, that's great, because I skipped over that. We actually did a study from Pathogenia Lab in Quebec, and the reason I went there is they specialize in food testing. So what we did is we sent the cell there, and they decided to take ground chicken, and there was a reason for that, and raspberries, because a lot of the pathogens that come from stores when you're buying it seems to be one that fish as well. It seems to hold things like E. coli, Streptococcus pyogenes. These are all. So we tested 15 different ones, and we posted this. This is all on Daryl's sites. And what we did is we put the food on it for 5 minutes, both the raspberries and the chicken, and different E. coli's and pathogens were reduced up 65 to 85 in some cases, with Listeria 100%. So what it was doing, it takes that pathogen or that frequency that you all know about, let's say E. coli. So that's a frequency, right? That's all it is. Everything is. So what it does is this algorithm comes and it neutralizes it. It just goes boom. It's just a neutral base. So it takes that down in various degrees. So we all have that post-it. So all you need to do is in your fridge or on your counter. I use it on my counter because you can put a plate too. You don't have to put the food raw onto it. You can put it on a plate and then put it on for 5 minutes. So certain foods, and it's certain vegetables or things like what's one that usually comes with a lot of stuff is romaine lettuce, things like that. When it comes, just put it on a plate and put it on for 5 minutes and then put it away. You don't have to do all your foods, but just the ones you kind of know are coming with stuff, and you put it on there, put it away, and you can be assured under certain degrees. And we tested 15 different pathogens, and it affected it all. And you can go on, and actually we have the reports. It's all professionally done, and it shows you what it reduced. So it's a fact that it does it. There's no question about that. It's just to what degrees of what pathogens in there, right? So it's definitely, and take it into restaurants particularly. It does come now in a silk bag. It takes a silk bag so you can put it in a purse for the gals, the guys, whatever you put it in. You have it in a silk bag, but you take it into restaurants. So when they're bringing that restaurant food, the restaurant food, and just put that on there before you eat it. Just set it on there, and that'll save you maybe picking up something weird from the restaurant kitchen, or if you're in a weird spot or something like that, right? So, so we use it a lot like that, or I do, right? The only thing is humorous about it. Sometimes you end up picking up a lot of the knives and forks too, right? Because it sticks, because it's magnetic. So you'll do something, and all of a sudden you got a knife and a fork sticking to it too. I've done that a lot of times, right? So, but anyway, so I hope that answers that. Or okay, good. Yeah, you were.
So you mentioned pets, and would it help with like different diseases? Like I have a little Shih Tzu, 15, almost 16, and she's deaf, and I can see she's got cataracts. She still runs like crazy.
Yeah.
But so would this plate help with that?
Well, what we've noticed, I'll just give you the feedback. I don't get into like, would it clear a disease, whatever. But what we've noticed is that with a lot of older pets, or just pets in general that are having problems, they put the cell in the bed with it. And really funny stories is that pets that wouldn't even sleep in their bed will only sleep in the bed now, right? So there's all this going on. But what we've noticed is it's giving an energy, a health back to the dogs or cat. We had one case where a cat had a urinary infection. Mr. Bob Conley, who fed all this back to me. And what happened is he took it to the vet for some antibiotics too for it. And that was doing somewhat of a thing or a problem to it. But then he weaned it off that. Then he put the pure wave cell to it, and it was gone. In his particular case, in other cases, it's just the animals noticeably are operating better, or they're not limping around. This kind of thing. So I wouldn't address it as saying that I don't know what disease they would have and what it takes, but it helps their immune system, and therefore helps them to heal themselves. You know, same as us. Right, is basically what, but it seems to more because they're smaller than us, it seems to affect them better just because of body size, maybe, you know, so.
Does it help with pesticides, fruits and berries, any results of that?
You know, that's a good question because pesticides we haven't tested for, like specific pesticides. My guess is it would, but we only tested it for food pathogens. So I wouldn't really make a statement of saying that it will, but it's highly likely because they're just a frequency too. But that's a great thing because that's something I'd like to do later on.
Which we are doing.
Which we are going to be doing. It's just trying to get to this and test it for different pathogens because that's important for the bees too. But we haven't done that. So, but my guess is that because of what it's doing with the food pathogens, which are pretty, you know, it's that pesticides are a little different. So I'd have to say I couldn't say definitively it does, but my guess is it does. Certainly, if you're bringing foods in and stuff, you can't go wrong with that. For now, you know, that kind of thing, right?
The same for water. Have you tested
water? Yes, water is different. The structure like different with the water. Definitely been an alternate to the water because it does it at a molecule level. And all we found, we didn't test the water like specifically what it was doing. What we did notice is we did notice that there was just like we have with the honey, which I'll talk about, there was a higher energy to it. So for example, honey is mostly water, pretty much. So we actually took through frequency testing through chirography. What we did is we took our own honey. We both were our own honey. We did it before we treated it with the frequency and after. And again, this is all on film. We all have this for you. And it shows the honey on a curricula. It shows it beaming. And then after it jumps. It's like 4 times, right? So it's that with the water as well. So we actually have that for you where we put it on the instrument and test it. And it's through a photography that you can see it and just see it jump, you know, from a molecule standpoint. So.
Is that a time thing? Is it like, does that?
It was within.
You tested like weeks or months?
No, it was, we tested one and the other within minutes of being treated and it was all under film. So it was almost live.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, if you retest it again in a month, is that charge still going to be there?
It depends where it goes. Cause again, it's environment, right? So if you take that jar of honey and it's exposed somewhere else,
right,
that's different. It'll always be honey and a high quality, but I would say that if it got exposed to something else, that could interfere too with that. Yeah. Yeah. So
parts. How do we use that with their bodies? And secondly, how does it mitigate Wi-Fi and 5G and radiation for fire?
yeah, first question with your body, it's mostly inflammation that we've noticed. Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. People sleep with it, or they put it on certain parts of their body. It's really good for that, like pain management, things like that. It works really well. That we know. As far as mitigating 5G, there's no proof of that. Like there's no proof of us saying, well, you put that under your pillow and then it's going to negate some of the Wi-Fi that's in there. No, we don't have any data on that. So we wouldn't recommend saying you buy that because you want to get rid of Wi-Fi or, our feeling is that there's an interference there because that's what Wi-Fi is. It's, it's an algorithm too. And it's an interference, but we don't have any data to say that, yeah, this is going to block it out or something like that.
Like some blood cell would help out. I saw where people were measured in their blood.
Mhm.
They were grounded for 1 hour with grounding technology
Yeah.
and their blood completely unpumped and changed.
Oh, yeah, no, we've done, yeah. Well, not so much here with just the single cell, but the instrument I keep telling you about, that's the bigger instrument. We actually did live blood testing with that, and it was clumped and afterwards completely separated out. Now, this might do it on a smaller scale. That was on a big scale, like a big body scale, right? But definitely this kind of frequency affects the cells. There's no question.
Will of resonance mean that even if you put it here, it's gonna resonate through
Yeah.
the whole body?
Yeah.
It's full.
It does. It's just saying, yeah.
That's it, really.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm just trying to say what we know versus, what we speculate or what I feel, right? So
What's your last name?
Knudsen. Yeah, Knudsen. Yeah. And don't forget that you can go on and see what we elected to do is do 6 programs in a row so that we could take you right back to history, take you where it all came from, and then take you into what we're up against today, which is all the junk we're up against, and then the future, what we're doing with it, and then where we're going into the ecology. And then next show is all on the honey itself. We're just going to do a whole show on the honey and what you can do and how you can use it. And then we're going to go into more technology, just so that you can see all of this for yourself, from a confirmation kind of standpoint. Yeah.
Do you notice any evidence of these like tested against increased rural weight resistance?
Yeah. The first test that we did with Christine, the hives that didn't have it had 50% more mites than the ones they were blown away. There was no mites in the ones that had the cell in it. So that was the first, but that's not always the case, because depending on what they're subjugated to or up against or food sources, what we find is the healthier you can have the bee, the more they can resist it. They can resist off it because they'll use chemicals to try and kill them and do stuff like that, which is why I don't want to get honey all from that area, right? So, but it's really the immune system that helps ward them off. It's like us. The healthier we are, the less those bugs can get at us, or as attracted to us, right? So
I don't think there are any foods that don't deal with mites.
no, they all do. Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely are subjected to it, but it's just how much they can deal with it would be the way to answer that. Yeah.
Because I've been like colony out of this area, it's called Calvins.
Yeah.
So I'm with Mark.
Where are they now?
They're near Vancouver.
Okay, way up there. Yeah.
Where
Eric is. Yeah.
They have a farming.
Oh, that's great. How
Yeah, it's really.
many hives do you have?
I'm really down this year.
Well, so is a lot of them are. Yeah.
But it goes up.
How many did you start with?
Well, we're in that range.
Okay. Well, it's something, if you ever want to, we could talk to you about doing a test and stuff like that too.
They're in a bear cage though, like it's an intense cage, like it's heavy metal. Like,
Oh,
so I don't know. I've heard that there's also a frequency that comes off that metal. So
okay.
because the size of the poles, east probably. They'd rather not travel through that. I can tell, and I've got bigger spaces for them to go through, but I wonder if that
I'd like to talk to you about that. How long have you been beekeeping?
about 12 years.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd like to talk to you about that because cross-reference the other beekeepers, what's going on, right? So, yeah, good. Okay.
I've seen some shows about shape of honeycomb. I'm curious if the bees on this end up making 6-sided combs.
No. Sorry, the bees on what? Honeycombs.
On this vibration or
Yeah.
this frequency,
Yeah.
end up shifting if they have the space and they're not, if they're given free range on how to build their home.
Yeah.
What will they end up with the 6-sided
Well, it's all it's all hexagon, right? Which is 6-sided. Yeah.
square face?
No, so you're right. So if you look at any of them, they're all hexagon in there.
small ones are.
Yeah.
Because I've only seen them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh, if they made a bigger one onto it. No, I haven't seen that. It's all been at a cell, like each cell. Yeah, yeah,
The way
yeah.
they make them is through vibration. They don't actually physically.
It's through their frequency. Yeah.
They vibrate into that shape,
Yeah.
and it's the same shape as water.
It's fascinating. Yeah. Anybody else, anything to do with,
Quick question, so, regarding the unit, so we're, going back to the food, so what about organic versus non-organic foods and all the chemicals that are on them? Would you still be? Can you improve on both of them and, or we just spend the extra money on organic when you have the net?
I think if you're spending where you're buying grocery store, lots of organic food comes with pathogens in it.
That's what I.
Yeah.
it's like-
Now, they may not have the pesticide, but they picked up some other pathogen. So I would say
I
that,
know it's a loaded question. in
yeah,
a
no,
way.
but it's a good question, but I would treat like just because it's organic, it still has all kinds of different pathogens or can. So, treat
Organic
it,
has glyphosate in it.
yeah, treat it, right?
Really?
Yes, organic has glyphosate.
So that's
Isn't that
another-
Roundup?
Yes, it is right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's everywhere in the water.
So I would use it regardless. It's a great
So
question.
I guess, would you still, I guess I'm answering my own question, that it may not all be worth it to spend the extra money on organic unless you know you get it from a farm like what, Dr. Darrell has access to.
I agree. Like your source, you have to know your source, right?
Yeah. And what would
Just structure with your structure water unit.
Yeah,
You gotta structure it and then use the magnet. You're gonna bring it back. And
yeah,
understand something, do testing, you're gonna find out something. A lot of times organic, the frequency isn't as high as the inorganic. It's not always the way.
That's
it
right.
is,
That's right.
exactly, no.
Okay,
Just a comment to that,
Yeah.
because this is kind of important to it. I had a person in my history who was very much into the produce business for many years in the grocery industry. And we used to have these arguments about why I wanted organic. And he'd say, well, you do realize that it's not better than having the sprayed stuff. And I'd say, what do you mean it's not better? He'd say, well, because it has been sprayed for bugs and bacteria and so on. So of course, the organic infestation is going to happen with an organic product. You're going to
Yeah.
have bacteria and things like that you won't have it necessarily sprayed. Don't have the same food value, but knowing that you're now treating an organic product for something that hasn't, you know what I mean, right? The idea of spray is to keep the bugs and insects and bacteria off of it. So
It's
now
actually
you've got an
such a-
organic
And
product.
let me ask you something really quick, and it's also partially to Dr. Darrell, when you, because you say this so many times, it's so brilliant that the food, what we really eat is the vibration.
It's just it's
So when you say maybe the nutritional value is different, how about the vibration, like?
Yeah.
let's get into that after Brent's done.
Oh,
I promise I will, okay?
okay.
that's great. That's great. And doing it. So is there any, yes. Yeah.
You're saying that, the cell gets rid of the mites, so would it keep the fleas off the dogs?
No, it didn't get rid of the mites. We were just covering that over with this young lady that was talking about bees. What it does is it builds up the immune system in the bee where they're able to fight off more of infestation of whatever they're up against. And that's also pesticides.
Remember that the frequency of the bee, the human, the animal attracts the mites.
Right.
Let me tell you something.
Especially if it's weakened.
Yeah, I had four children, okay? And my children would end up getting lice. My wife would go, okay, we all gotta wash, we all gotta cut our hair. Nobody's washing me and nobody's cutting my hair. I'm too high vibrational to get this. I'm never gonna get lice. I never did. And everybody in the family would get it all the time. When I go out, I don't get bit by mosquitoes. Do you understand? Understand. And when somebody gets bit by a mosquito and their leg swells up, that's because they are the infection.
Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody's questions here, because it's probably the same questions that are out there. But again, living our lives and going out doing it keeps you young. I feel great. I'm 70 just about. So it feels great to be, have that energy to go out there and do it. A lot of my friends and stuff, they're in retirement homes or they're in wherever. But it's to me, it's dynamic is the very proof of being here is we are that energy and dynamics of what we do and what we eat, who we are. And to be fearless, that's why we call it Be Brave. To be fearless is to know that, we're here for a while in these spacesuits, and then we're onward too, but there's no fear to that. So it's just basically is that we just get the right information and we know that how nature works. If we work with nature and don't turn our back on it, it works for us. And then just pay attention to it. So we're so busy and so distracted, we don't actually, that was my biggest thing is when I was young, I thought I don't want to go through this whole life. And at the end, no matter how many things I bought or had, I didn't even understand how it worked. I went through the whole thing. And when it was just some kind of ride, I don't even know what it was. Don't even know how it operated, right? So that I feel comfortable in at least that, so that there was something I gained by being here, which I begged to come here. I think this is the greatest experience in the whole world, right? So, yeah.
Can I give the testimonial?
Yeah, you can do whatever you like.
Got it. I took the Bullet coach course and I got it. And so my dog was 14 at the time. She's border collie, German Shepherd. So they're hip school, right?
Yeah.
She was like she flews, she fall on the floor. Anyway, I put it in the bed with her. It's been about 4 months now because I didn't think of it at first. I should have done it sooner.
Yeah.
She is running around like nothing. I got a min pin who's got tiny little feet and legs, and she gets hurt a lot, badly, like really bad. I can tell when it's a bad one because of the way they act. I put it in the bed with her. Next morning, she's walking. My father, who's the biggest bah humbug guy, and we're Italian, so my God, the guy has a pasta his whole life. He's all stiff.
Yeah.
He fell and he hurt his knees. It was a little fall. And so I said, Dad, just put this in the bed with you. I'm like, Dad, please do me a favor. Just put this in the bed with you, right? So anyway, I get up the next morning. He's walking back. I said to him, like, how do you feel, Dad? And he goes, it hurts. So he's never going to say, oh, I feel better, because he probably feels pain from another area. Like he can't tell the difference. But I said, just keep it for a few days. And I can see it. He walks better. Then I want it back because you got to buy more. So, I go, okay, he's complaining too. It's like, it's not working. I'm like, okay, just give it to me. I need it for us, And then he's lifting more. It's the frequency. Frequency is everything.
It is. No, thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. I'll leave you on a funny note when we're talking about animals. So my partner here, Terry, his girlfriend, they have 2 labs, right?
2 labs.
2 labs. And I'll let you tell the story. Yes, it's his story, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, one of them had hip problems, and I said, take this home and put it under the bed. Well, when her father gets home, the dog always brings a toy to him at the door. Well, this time he picked up the cell and brought the cell.
Yeah, showed up with that.
To her father.
And that's not uncommon. They do that, or they'll hang around it.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. This what we've seen.
It'll be funny things, and we actually have to go out and get this so people can see.
And this is just an offshoot of what we were doing with the bees, right? Our big main concern is the bees, because as you know, without the bees, we have no food. So,
and without pets, I don't know where we'd be, right? Because those are
we love them more than their children.
Oh,
I think so.
So they stay with us. So. Any more questions? Oh, sorry, there's one more here.
When you put the jar of honey on it, and changes the frequency.
Oh, it's even better. It's great. Like to put the honey on the cell.
I keep mine on the counter and put my honey on top.
Well, it'll hold it for a while, but if you have a cell, that's a great way, and you have the honey, just leave the honey like on there before you have it every time, or put anything you want on there, apples, fruit, whatever. I mean, it's so easy to do. All you got to do is set it on there, or put a plate and set some of your fruit. I always have avocados are the worst for me because they ripen, and I love avocados and have them in shakes. So when we bring them, and again, it's in the videos, it shows cauliflower and other things. it'll last a couple of days longer. Like that, and you can put it in a bowl, but it'll not ripen as fast. It'll eventually ripen, but because I'm always one step behind the avocado, right? It's like, okay, I'm ready, and then I've lost it, right? So for avocado lovers, get it on a thing on there, and you'll get an extra few days. Right? So.
It mentioned about the metal and metal spoons.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's
Yeah, metal spoons.
use a wooden spoon
Wooden
if you
spoon's
can.
better. Don't heat your honey to a boiling point.
Don't put it in tea. Not
put it-
this honey.
Like, let it be tepid, not hot. My routine is every morning I take a warm glass of structured water. I put the water on the cell. I take a tablespoon of honey, mix that, lemon juice, some cinnamon, whatever. It just boosts everything. Just do that alone and you'll feel the difference.
The water's room temperature, or you?
Just enough that it'll
Yeah.
dissolve.
Okay.
Because it will react to metal. And the thing with silver spoon, you've heard you were born with a silver
Yeah,
spoon
there's
in
a
your mouth.
chemical there.
And what it is silver, like colloidal silver, will kill stuff. And that's why rich families ate off of silver and ate with silver spoons.
Yeah, that's
Right?
the reason.
So that was the reason.
Oh, another thing, we were talking about the honey, I just lost it there. There was something about that. Oh, yes. You need to understand that at least, I think we just got the thing, at least 50 to 50% of honey that's out there you buy in a store isn't real honey. It's been mixed. It's had sugar put in it. Olive oil and honey is third. Olive oil is the
Maple
number one
syrup, olive oil, and honey.
as
are the
being
most
that it's not the
adulterated-
real thing, right?
Most adulterated.
So that you should know is that when you're going and buying Billy Bee honey,
Make sure you,
a lot of times the reason it's cheap in 6-7 ice is they've mixed other sugars and other stuff in there. So just know that.
Oil is real.
Yeah. Sorry, back there.
So my question is to that one, what is the difference between regular honey, which is $10, and Manuka honey, which is $80?
Right.
Good question.
What's the difference?
I'll tell you what the difference is. It comes from the Manuka tree in New Zealand, and they've super marketed. And a lot of times people buy Manuka honey to put on like burns and things. They actually don't eat it, right? Because it's not very tasty. A lot of Manuka honey is not a very tasty honey, but they've marketed it really well. But so that you understand the actual studies of it, Manuka honey has never been, you can go to Wikipedia and look this up, it's never been proven to be better than any other real good raw honey. It's just used in different ways and they've marketed it really well. And that's the reason. But real honey, like I'll give you the difference between clear runny honey and raw honey is one's been heated, one isn't, right? Or pasteurized. And so what we do is we've got that raw, but then it's got a special cream process that we do it through the company that we have that gives it this creamy texture where it doesn't run. But this is raw. This has never been heated. So you're dealing with raw, unprocessed honey here that comes from those hives, and then we treat it. And that's what makes this unique, that we can actually define it as to what we do with it. And we've tested that honey under the scope of what it does to charge it. So you can count on what it is as far as a high quality honey. But to answer your question, really not, there's.
you can put it on open sores. You can put it on your
Yeah,
face beauty
yeah.
treatment with sea buckthorn oil.
So
It's a beautiful treatment for your skin. It's antibiotic. It's amazing.
is honey regulated here in Canada?
Not as much. They dump a lot from China.
And especially America too, right?
They dump a lot of it and sell it as so-called honey. It's the same as olive oil. There's not that board behind it to really. So if you know a beekeeper, or take the time to go out to a bee yard and experience being around bees, it's magical. That buzz is healing. They say the beekeepers have the longest life.
They do. They're the longest ones. Yeah.
Same as orchestra conductors, because they're in harmonic
Yeah.
all the time.
There's one ingredient in this honey.
Yeah.
That's right there. It's one ingredient. That's what it is.
So one more, and that's it.
No, it's
So where do the wild bees go in the fall time? Do they all die off, or what's going on?
no.
They'll hibernate the same way. They'll have places in the forest where they go, wild bees.
Are you talking wild bees? Yeah, because domestic bees, they provide, they wrap their hives and they put food, they have food in there for them. There's honey and mixtures, and then they feed on that through the winter time for the domestic ones. in the forest, they've set up their honey hives and whatever, and they'll go in there and they just all get together. They have to protect themselves, and that's how they do it. Any other
One more
question?
real quick question last time. So if, can this be, can the cell be transferred between family members, for example?
Sure.
Or?
Sorry, we transfer from what?
Family members.
So
Oh,
let's
for
say
sure.
If you have one in the family, that
Sure,
is, then do you ever have to like charge or?
you'll be fighting over it.
Nope.
Sorry?
You'll be fighting over
For
it.
sure, no, I'm no doubt about that.
But you've asked a good question. How
People travel when you like airplane or stuff like.
people have gone through, they'll see it, they'll look at it, but they'll pick up on it, but
Just beware of electronic equipment around it,
Yeah.
your cell phone,
don't put it
computer.
right on it.
Don't put it right on it.
No, don't put your cell phone on the stuff.
Pacemaker, you gotta be careful.
Yeah, because it's magnetic.
It's magnetic.
Yeah.
Will it destroy the hard drive?
It may,
No,
it may.
well, if it was strong enough, we haven't heard of anybody like that's strong enough to do a hard, but just don't have it around.
Just be cautious of where you put it.
But the magnet, it only loses strength of about 3 to 4% every 10 years. So this is really good for 20 years. Like in other words, cheaper magnets will lose strength after 4 years. So you've lost all your magnetism. Not with this case. This is
So
good.
this is basically for life?
It's good for 20 years before you're really starting to lose the magnetism.
So would you be able to tell? If it's-
Oh, because they've tested the neodymium. They give us all of it.
If I have one, how can I start telling if the charge?
After it would probably lose 30% of its value after, right? You're going to notice it's just not as effective. That's
And more good at story.
On a counter,
or in
I have one in my
or in
fridge.
your fridge.
I went on my
Not in the
fridge,
freezer, but in the fridge. Yeah.
my counter.
What's the span of it? How far is it?
Oh, that's a great question because we tested at 1 foot, 12 inches, and then it starts to dissipate. So when you have this, it will go, it's a circle of 12 inches of its full strength, and then it starts to dissipate out from there. Yeah, but full strength, 12 inches.
And one other thing is when you have it, it works better if you just move it a little bit.
Oh, if you rub it, it charges up.
It's
Yeah.
even more so. It's like Tesla used to walk
Friction.
through, every day you walk so many paces every day. Right? And that's when we had leather bottoms on our shoes, right? So we could.
Does anybody here have PEMF mats? Pulse electric
Yeah.
magnetic frequency. Okay, we're doing a whole study with the group. Bob Conley out of Oakville. He specializes in mass mats, and people buy from him, and he's kind of an authority onto it. We've tested where we put this in another mat of 10 of these in here, or they've just put one of these on those mats over the coils. And they found out that it's magnified, speeded up the healing process. I mean, it's good anyway, those mats, but this seems to speed it up, and they're doing all kinds of tests. We've got a doctor down in Pittsburgh, Peter Sorick, and he's bought a whole mat of them that we did for him just to test it, and he's getting amazing results, putting it on top of the mat that they already have. And it just he says it's speeding it up like by 4 times. So
Well,
that's just
There's the strongest mat there that Paul is laying on,
right.
okay? No, but that is the most advanced mat. Trust me, there's nothing else.
Mhm.
We want to talk to Marcel about how this one is different than all the rest. And then use the magnets with it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying it with
It
it. Right?
increases microcirculations, activations by 50% more than mass or anything that's out there.
Wow, great,
Yeah, it'll increase actual circulation
nice.
on a micro scale, 50% more than any other mat on the market.
Yes,
So
Clear your.
it could. Yeah, I wouldn't be putting it on. It doesn't do it all the time because I've mistakenly had my wallet around that nothing's happened, but it could. It could. Yeah, remember, you're dealing with magnets, right? Yeah. Well, you should put it in, well, yeah, you put it in a separate place. Like you wouldn't want to put it with your electronics and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah. Or in your purse, put it in your purse. Right. Oh, yeah. Well, it's, you'd have to separate it out. I mean,
Everybody,
okay, so
we're gonna take, if you have more questions, you can talk to them. We're gonna take a 10-minute break. And then, if you want to, purchase the magnets, they're on for 500 Canadian. And,
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
You look amazing. You guys both like same age and you guys look amazing.
We're old guys. Well, I'm older than him. Oh, yeah.
So what did you say? You were-
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back in a few minutes and we're going to be answering health questions for everybody here. And then I'm going to do a demo, some non-surgical and cell sonic demo. We'll be back in a bit. Thank you, everyone.
You feel like that? I know.
Yeah. 10 minutes, everyone.
How you enjoying your life in Mexico?
I love it. Nothing like it.
Where are you there, like in the West Coast? South Coast?
I'm on the West Coast.